I'm going to show you how to develop a complete SEO and AI search plan for 2026 that actually works. I'm Nathan Gotch, co-founder of Rankability and the new Search OS, author of the upcoming book AI SEO for Dummies, and I've led hundreds of successful SEO campaigns over the last decade. So we're going to start with Google Search Console and we're going to extract some existing queries. So just remember that if you extract by the default setting here, you're only going to get 1,000 queries. So in this example we're looking at here, this website has 14 million impressions, which means it has a lot of queries that we want to extract. So it's a couple things we can do. First, you can use the Google Search Console API to extract even more, but let's not get too advanced. We'll keep it kind of simple here. You can actually just use the filters, and obviously not every keyword is worth exporting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the filters here. I'm going to go to query, and then I'm going to go to the rejects here, and I'm just going to enter this. Now I'll have this below the video that you can use yourself. It's very simple, and you can also build it with ChatGPT. So the first thing I'm doing here is I want to extract all the commercial keywords. This is most important because we want to build our entire strategy thinking from the bottom of the funnel and then working our way up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and export these. I'm going to put them into a Google Sheet, and I'll show you how we're going to start to filter through these and ultimately prioritize all of these queries. So Search Console will open up a dedicated Google Sheet, and you're going to see queries, and at the bottom you're going to see pages. And so what I've done is I went ahead and moved all this over to the sheet that I'm using for this particular video. Okay, so there's a couple of things I want to do. Number one, let's just start to study the existing keywords. Now, here's one thing you don't want to do. You don't want to try to tackle every single keyword, every single thing at the same time. What you want to do is think about this in sprints. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify the keywords that really mean the most in this particular business and the ones that are most likely to drive the most revenue if we drive more visibility across traditional search and AI platforms. So what I want to do is, of course, I can, start to study a lot of these keywords. That's obviously a good thing. And these are really keywords with a lot of commercial intent. But I can also go over here and look at a lot of these top pages. Okay. And I can identify what are the pages that are most important to us, and what are the pages that have that clear commercial intent. So a couple examples right away that pop out to me is like, I'll put a little Y here next to this as I go through this, but we have best SEO tools for agencies. So obviously this is a very important keyword if you're selling SEO software. All right. So that one, and then this one and this one. So this is best SEO tools for agencies. We have best SEO content optimization tools, and then best AI search visibility tools. So just these three kind of core pages are, three of the most important pages for driving brand awareness for this product. Okay. So what we're going to do is, instead of trying to tackle all of them, we're just going to focus in on the ones that really, really matter. Now here's one way to kind of make this easier. You could, of course, filter through all these keywords, or what you can do is just take one of these, and we're going to see ultimately how one of these pages is doing. So I'm actually going to go with the best AI search visibility tracking tools, okay? Because we're actually launching a tool very soon that does this. So we're going to go back over here, and we're going to go to pages, and we're actually going to filter through all of these queries. And we're going to do it based on the one page here. And what this is going to do is, inside of Search Console now, you can see when I look at this, I can actually export 1,000 queries specifically for this one URL. Okay, that's really, really important. So this is one kind of issue with Search Console, is it kind of gives you little snapshots of queries. But in this case, we can export 1,000, and that will be more than enough to kind of figure out how are we going to improve the performance for this one cluster. All right, so I moved all the keywords for that one URL over to another tab here, and this is where the magic starts to happen. Okay, so what we want to do here is we want to start to figure out which of these keywords are good for targeting on the existing page versus which keywords should we build dedicated pages for to build this cluster. So when I think in terms of clusters, I'm tackling one core topic. So the core topic here for me is AI search tracking tools. Okay, that's kind of the core topic, and we're going to build support all around that one topic. Okay, so we can go through this very quickly. I'll show you the way that I would approach this. So number one is, we're looking for those variants. We're looking for keywords that typically are not ranking very well. And there's a reason why they're not ranking well. Number one, it could be a lack of links. It could be a lack of positive signals. There's lots of reasons. It could also be a lack of could just not be well optimized. But a lot of the times, one of the reasons is because it has a mismatch on intent. Okay, it's irrelevant. The query is irrelevant to that page. Okay, so it would be helpful to actually open up the page so we can see what this page is all about. All right, so this page is clearly a listicle about the best AI search rank tracking tools. Okay, pretty standard stuff, right? Nothing super revolutionary here. So we know that for a keyword to align with this page, it needs to be on this one topic. If it does not focus on this one topic, it is a candidate for expanding the additional pages that will support this one page. Okay, this will make a lot of sense here in a second. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go over here, and I'm just going to say, we'll say new. All right, so a new just means that very likely we should build a dedicated page for this. Okay, and we can, by sorting by position, this is the best way to do it, because if it's not ranking very well, there's probably an issue. Okay, so we're going to walk through this real quickly. Okay, so I went ahead and put all of these queries into buckets and categories, and so now I'm in a good place where I can see kind of the types of assets we need to build to support this one page. And as we can see here, there's a lot of kind of unique ways that this page is being discovered. But the thing is, this page is not relevant enough for AEO, which is answer engine optimization. It is not relevant enough for best SEO or best software for AI mode or Google AI mode. It's not relevant enough for AI overviews. It's not relevant enough for ChatGPT. So what is clear to me already is that to be able to improve the performance of this page, we need to attack these topics to support this page. Okay, so I've identified best AI search visibility tools as the primary focus of this page. Now, here's something that's really important to do. There's going to be a lot of keywords that you're going to want to target on the same page. You're not going to need to create a dedicated page for a lot of these variants. And so the key to understanding this is making sure that you only create a new page when the query has clear different intent. Or a better way to think about it is if you had to create a dedicated landing page and you had to drive paid ads to that page, how specific would you make that page, right? So an example of this is looking at some of these queries. I've sorted these by impressions. So what I want to see, are there certain words that are synonymous that are being used that I still need to mention on this page? So an example is this one here. What are the best AI search monitoring tools? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put this in green because this is a variant of this core keyword. So what we want to do is go ahead and just take whatever the word is that is kind of missing from that original query. So in this case, it's going to be monitoring. Okay, so I'm going to put that variant here. Okay, and this is just a reminder that when I build the title tag and the meta description, and even the page itself, then I'm hitting on some of these core variants. Okay, that's really important. And then we can keep going down here. We see we have AI search platforms. Once again, another slight variant that could make a difference by saying platforms, right? Or platforms, right? That's a very simple thing we can do. And then keep going down here, keep looking for any other variants that we can add to this list. Okay, so as you can see here, I've added all the variants that I'm gonna attack on this one page. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start adding the supporting pages that we need to build, or if those pages already exist, we need to make those pages better to attack more of these keywords, to expand our keyword footprint. So here's an example here. We're looking at AEO, which is answer engine optimization. We can clearly see there is a variant here for this type of query. Now the question is answer engine optimization wildly different than a lot of what these variants this main page is already going after? That one's somewhat debatable, but I would still probably build a dedicated page for it. So, and if when in doubt, what you can do is just go into Google, and this is the way that I will typically test this is best AEO tracking tools. Okay, so we'll run that. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run the exact query that we know we're going after for sure. And we're gonna run that and we're gonna see how that pans out, okay? So what we have here, once we get past all of the ads, we're gonna look and see how different the results are based on that variant, okay? So obviously, with AI overviews, it's pretty erratic and you're probably gonna see variants no matter what. But you probably want to go down here and just look at the traditional search results, because this will give you a better clue into how Google is understanding the intent of that phrase. And so what I'm looking for is like, if these results are pretty much the same, then I'm probably not going to go and create a dedicated page. But if I see a lot of variance here, then I know I need to create a dedicated page. And based on what I'm seeing here, I see a lot of variance. I don't see a lot of pages that are ranking that are similar across these. Okay. So what I would do is definitely create a dedicated page for this query. All right. That was a very simple one that we could come to that conclusion. All right. So we got that one. Next, what we're going to do is AI mode. So looking at this, we have best AI mode rank tracking tools. That variant has the most impressions. So we're going to go ahead and mark that one specifically. And so we'll go ahead and take a look. We're going to label these all a little bit different so we can color code them. But looking at AI mode rank tracking tools, this one's a really good one. We'll go after that. And then we're just going to keep going down the list and adding all of the dedicated topics that we're going to attack with dedicated pages. Okay, so I've got a cluster of 9 pages to go after that are all closely linked together. And so the good news is as we build these out, what's going to happen is once they get indexed in Google and they start to get organic traffic, we can go back to Google Search Console and extract those keywords again and identify new keywords to continue building more and more support. But in the beginning, you want to identify 5 to 10 core topics that you go after. And that's going to give you, those 5 to 10 core pages. That's going to allow you to really expand your keyword footprint. But most importantly, the beauty of this is it actually gives you intelligence. It gives you, data that you didn't have before that you can then double down on and ultimately improve the strength of this one cluster. So the next obvious question is, how do we actually go after these keywords? So before you just jump in and start trying to either optimize an existing page or create new content, there's one thing you have to do that's going to make your life so much easier. I need you to build a knowledge base. This is so important, and I just cannot stress this enough. Okay, so there's multiple ways you can do this. Number one, you can use ChatGPT. So you can just use a project. So if you go into ChatGPT, start a new project here, and then you're going to be able to have this little project here where you're going to be able to upload files related to the brand. So in this case, we would upload files related to rankability, about the products, the services, testimonials, reviews, everything about this business. Okay. And what that allows us to do is the AI will now, whenever you run a query in here and you ask a question, the AI is going to reference those docs first. It's going to go and do retrieval on your documents. Then if it will come back, and that means, like, let's say you wanted to create an SEO content brief, you will start in here and it will actually retrieve all that information so that that brief is on brand. And then, so on and so forth with your content, it will stay on brand and it will sound just like the business. In other cases, if you were to go to featured.com, and you're trying to respond to press inquiries for your client, what you'd want to do is you build a knowledge base at the beginning of the campaign, and then you can actually use that knowledge base to respond on their behalf, and it will sound almost just like them. And of course, you still need to get approval and all those things. But still, this gives you a place where you can greatly streamline your efforts and have that kind of subject matter expert feel just by using this knowledge base. Okay, so this is the easiest one to do, which is just go into ChatGPT, add some files, and then probe the files using the AI. Okay, that's one option. Another option is you can use a tool like Replit. Okay, so this is an example of one I built just to show this system. I built this in a very short amount of time. It took me probably, less than 30 minutes to build a prototype where, if you're running an agency, you could have multiple clients in here and multiple knowledge bases that you can, upload artifacts and then ultimately probe the AI and retrieve based on those documents. Okay. So this is very, very powerful. Now, I have been working on something, and so I will show you another way to do this. And if you don't know how to do this, I actually show exactly how to do this inside of the Search OS platform. Okay, you can see I actually have build client knowledge base. There's actually 6 standard operating procedures in this entire system where I show you all of the different methods you can use to build this client knowledge base in a very streamlined way. But just to take it up another notch, inside this platform, actually have the knowledge base tool built in here as well. Okay, so you're looking at the rankability client project. Rankability is quote unquote my client here. But what we do in the beginning of a campaign, the very first thing, like I said, is build that knowledge base. All you have to do is just go in here, and I'll just do website, for example, and I'll just paste in rankability, and this will import the information from that page, and now it will be used as a source. So for example, if I go in here and I say, what is rankability? This will not be pulled from generic, AI slop and AI models, this would be pulled directly from the retrieval source. So you're feeding the AI the retrieval source, you're feeding it facts, and then it comes back with actual verified information that is accurate. That is the beauty of this. And so what you can do here inside of this tool is you can actually add multiple sources. You can even decide which sources you want to use, and then you can probe that, and ultimately you can build this inside of this particular client project. Okay, so the name of this tool is called Search OS, and I'll have a link below the video if you're interested. But the most important thing is building this this client knowledge base. You have to do this because the next couple of steps, which are critical, is actually taking this important information and then being able to create really, really good content. So it's always best to focus on existing pages first. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at a few things. Number one is, let's just look at the basics. And I know this might seem quite obvious, but you want to go ahead and just use the detailed Chrome extension here and just look at and make sure that this page is actually crawlable and indexable. Okay, it's a very simple check. Just want to make sure that that is actually the case. So you can go over here, look at robots.txt, make sure it's not being blocked here. We're going to go over here. We can actually go and go into Google itself and just enter a site search like this and just make sure it's actually indexed. Okay, that's really, really important. And there's also actually a free tool inside of Rankability as well here that you can use. They'll actually see if it's retrievable as well by the AI platforms. Okay, so AI search indexability checker. I'm saying indexability, but it's not really about indexability, but just for the sake of the argument here, you can ultimately test this to make sure that all the AI crawlers can actually get to it and that ultimately it's accessible. Okay, that's the key. And it should be accessible. That matters. All right. So that's the first part, just like handle the basics, get that squared away. Then we want to make sure that the target keyword is appearing in the title tag. And we're going to go and look at this and we can see it is in the title tag and it's showing up in the meta description. We go to the headings. It's showing up in the H1, in the H2, even in the actually the first two H2s. Okay. So this page has completely handled the basics. All right. There's not a whole lot you can do on that front to make it that much better. Okay. So the next thing we're going to look at is we're going to go and actually look at the loading speed. Okay. And we can see here running it on mobile. It's almost at the point where the law of diminishing returns will set in. Typically for me, if we get this up to a 70, I know that going beyond that is not really going to improve performance very much, really at all. So it's probably not a big deal. But on top of it, this is highly contextual whether this matters. And so in the case of B2B, which is what we're in, mobile is not very common. Desktop is a lot more common. And you can see on desktop, we don't have basically any issues at all. So, this is not really a high priority issue because it's not going to really move the needle probably at all. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to run the page through Rankability by no surprise. We're going to run this and we're doing an import URL in this case. So it's actually going to look at that URL. And then it's going to extract that content and it's going to compare it against the top competitors for this specific keyword. Okay, so while that's running, we'll go ahead and look at some third-party signals that are going to make a difference as well. Okay, so we're going to look at this. We're going to go down. I want to see how strong are the websites that are showing up here. Okay, so what we're looking at here is we got some pretty strong websites that are popping up. Okay, pretty strong websites. In fact, Rankability actually is popping up in the AI overview. So that's actually a good thing, but it isn't appearing here in this top 10. So we've got some work to do. Now, what I want to do is I want to compare Rankability's overall domain rating, which is just a third-party metric from Ahrefs that determines the overall strength of a link profile. Don't take it as law, but it is a useful kind of metric that you can kind of play with. So looking at this, we can see, most of the sites here are very strong. Okay, the weakest site here is 66, and that's still pretty strong by most standards. All right, and so when we go and look at this page on Rankability, we see DR of 72 for the domain itself. And then as far as the referring domains, got about 36 referring domains going to this page. We'll look at the top competitors. Some of them have a lot more than that. Not as many, actually. The top ranking results actually don't have a ton, but we can see Profound. They actually have 2 rankings on the first page. They got 13 referring domains on this one, and they got 1,400 on here. So This is a tough keyword. This is a very, very tough keyword. And you can play every on-site game here in a scenario like this, but if you don't get links, it's not going to make a difference. Like, links are the difference maker here, clearly. And when we see really strong domains and also pages that have a significant amount of links, it's very clear what must be done. Okay. So it's important to, ground yourself in reality when, depending on the competition of the keyword. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at this, see if this is done. Okay. So this is still going. So what we're going to do in the meantime, while this is going, I'm going to go ahead and actually run a crawl. Okay. So I'll show you how I go about doing this. So we'll do this specifically for rankability. And this is very important because based on what we find in this crawl, we can use this to our advantage to improve performance. So what I'm going to show you here is we're going to go over to API. Actually, we'll go to configuration here. And this is the boring stuff, but it's important because it will make your crawl a lot more efficient. Okay, so I basically will get rid of all this stuff here. Most of it is not very useful, not really going to move the needle unless you're dealing with some enormous website that you can get some incremental changes from technical SEO. But for most businesses, you don't need to crawl all this stuff. Just don't even do it. It's not worth it. And we're going to keep going down here. Let's go down to, actually, we're going to go to the APIs. And this is where the real stuff really matters. So a couple APIs you want to connect. I would do Google Analytics. I would do Google Search Console, of course. And I would do Ahrefs or whatever, kind of link tracker you're using. Okay, so while the crawl is going, we can go ahead and take a look at the performance of this page inside of Rankability. So as we can tell here, we can go ahead and actually just get rid of some of this kind of extra content here. When it does the extraction, sometimes you'll actually pull some, some other stuff from the page and just get a realistic picture of kind of what we're working with here. So based on this, the optimization is not bad. It's really not bad at this point, but I do think it can definitely be improved. And so what we're going to look at here is, first, we're going to look at the competitors and just get kind of a look at how optimized are these competitors. Okay. Because the thing is, you don't want to be going super, super aggressively with the optimization. All right. And the thing is, optimization is one piece of the equation. Okay. One piece of the equation. And so we can see here, we're sitting, it looks like about 27 at this point. So we definitely need to, kind of readjust this page. We may even, maybe we need to decrease the optimization, but in general, we've got some opportunity here to make some adjustments. Okay. So looking at this, what I want to do is I really want to see the unused, okay, and see, are we not talking about some things that are very important for this particular topic? And the answer is yes. We aren't talking about some things that are definitely, some topics we should be going after, okay? So an example here is AI models, all right? We're not really talking about AI models in our content. It looks like Zapier is, it looks like Reddit is, it looks like Surfer is. So all of these websites are talking about this topic, which means we need to also be talking about it. Okay. And so this is the way that I approach this content. I'm looking for these gaps and ultimately seeing are there areas where we can improve this content to make it more relevant? And the thing is, this is somewhat of a moving target, because remember that when you run an optimizer like this, it's a moment in time. All right. So it's collecting all of this information from who's ranking right now. Okay. But in 3 months from now or 6 months from now, you could have a whole different set of different competitors that are popping up here, which means you're going to have to re-optimize again. So there is really nothing at this point that's going to be evergreen. You're not going to be able to just, optimize once and, let it go, because the truth is this page was performing very, very well when it first launched. But because competition continues to rise and becomes more difficult, it slowly starts to get pushed down because there's more people publishing, more fresh content coming in. And that's just the nature of it. So a page like this needs to get refreshed. It needs to get upgraded, and it has to attack more of these more modern topics like, meta AI, for example. This is not mentioned at all in our content. Okay, so the Screaming Frog crawl is complete. And so obviously this is a lot of overwhelming information here. And I promise you it's not that complicated. I'll show you some of the stuff that really matters. All right, so first thing I want to do is, keep that focus on that one URL. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to clear all this out, and I'm just going to focus in on that one URL. Okay, and there's a couple key things I'm going to look for when it comes to this one URL. So we're going to scroll over and we're going to look at specifically the amount of internal links that are going to this page. Okay, so a couple things I want to see. Number one is crawl depth. All right, so this is 3 clicks deep into the architecture. Now, when we think about this, that is like the absolute max that any page should be. But the reality is, if this is a very important page, then we should probably give it more priority in the site architecture. So I would actually say I'm going to give this a red, because I think this should be no more than 1 to 2 clicks deep, right? No more than that. Okay. Now, looking at this, when we look at unique inlinks, this is also a very, very important metric here, which is how many unique internal links are going to that URL. So based on this, honestly, 49 is actually really, really good. So this is not one that I would feel, I think this is a good pass, okay? But this is how you should treat every URL. You don't just look at the page level optimization, you also want to look at how much support does it already have, okay? And honestly, this page does have good support already. It has a lot of internal links, which means there's likely a lot of relevant pages linking to it. So, based on this analysis and, looking at Ahrefs, this page is suffering probably because of authority, right? That's probably the main thing, but it's still worth upgrading and improving it. Okay. So this is the value of running this crawl. You can quickly see like how much coverage does this page actually have. Now, with that in mind, if I'm setting my, Q1 checklist here, what I'm going to be doing is, number one, we're going to improve this page. Then after we improve that page, then we're going to go and build out these 8 supporting assets. Okay. 8 supporting assets. And this will accomplish a couple of goals. Number one, it's going to help build more support around that primary page that we want to improve. Okay. That's number one, which then also gives us more internal linking opportunities. Number two is this is going to help us ultimately rank for these longer tail phrases, okay? And that can bring in some long tail traffic, bring in really, really relevant traffic that's likely to convert. And then number 3, as we launch these new pages into the SERPs, that's going to help us collect more and more data. And as a result, we can expand this cluster more and more. So I'll show you an example of this. I actually already ran a query inside of Rankability. So we're going to be building this asset from scratch. So how do we go about doing this? So one key thing I want to tell you is yes, in Rankability, you can use AI content and it is very, very powerful and very good. But when it comes to really competitive keywords, I'd be very careful. The more competitive a keyword is, the less you should use AI content. Okay. So, and by the way, we rank for a lot of middle to high competitive, high competition keywords with AI content, but that's because we're fortifying a lot of those pages with backlinks and external signals. So I would not recommend just using straight AI content when the competition starts to climb. Okay. So an example how I would structure this is, first of all, handle the basics, which is, turn this into an H1 tag. And we know that, we can go ahead and do this. Now, there's another little detail here that I want to kind of bring your attention to. This is, when you're using a content optimization tool like Rankability, for example, you have to remember that it's pulling from whoever is ranking, okay? And whoever is ranking is not always doing the best strategy, okay? So when we look at this, we know that this is AI mode specifically. So when we look at this, we would expect to see AI mode popping up a lot, okay? But when we see that's not actually the case, right? There's actually not that many dedicated blog posts or dedicated pages specifically targeting this one AI product, okay? And we'll probably see the same trend for Claude and Grok and Copilot and all of these. So to me, when I see this, I actually get quite excited because this tells me that there's a gap, all right? And that means if we build a really, really good page, we can exploit this gap quite easily. Okay, so that's the idea. And not to say these pages aren't relevant. They're relevant broadly, but they're not relevant to this one core idea. So what you want to do, though, is you want to be really careful here, and you got to use kind of your best practices when it comes to proper on-page SEO. So obviously put the primary keyword in the H1 tag, and then of course you're going to write a sentence that includes that primary keyword as well, okay? Then from there, you do want to start to look at some of these topics and see which of these are relevant to what we're building. Okay, so Google AI overviews. This is relevant, but it's not relevant to this one keyword. So in my opinion, what I'd be doing is I'd create a frequently asked questions section. Okay. And I'm going to talk about, Google AI mode versus Google AI overviews for tracking. Okay, specifically. So I want to address this because these are not the same thing. These are different AI products, okay? So we want to make sure that we address that in an FAQ section. So that's all I have for you today. If you're interested in getting predictable systems, playbooks, and SOPs that you can repeat in your SEO and AI search campaign so you can actually scale an agency and ultimately deliver consistent results for your clients, which is the number one way that you retain your clients and you can actually grow. You want to have that, the confidence that you can actually deliver results for your clients. But most importantly, you want the confidence that someone else can do it. That is the key to scaling an agency. So I actually built this solution. I'm very excited to bring it into the market here because I do believe it solves one of the biggest problems, which is consistent delivery, consistent results. So go ahead and check it out. It's os.nathangotch.com and let me know what you think.